All right. Well, welcome everybody. As I said, my name is Jared Kingston. I'm a solution architect with Aperio, Salesforce MVP, and leader of the MVP office hours, alongside my esteemed co-leaders, Jackie Travieso and the voice you've been hearing, Dale Ziegler. If you guys want to say hi.
Hello, people.
Hello, all. Happy Friday.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. So welcome to MVP Office Hours. If you haven't joined before, we're glad to have you. We got a very special guest today. I just want to call attention to the right side of this slide for some upcoming events that you should definitely check out. It's not too late to book that Southwest Fair to Chicago for Midwest Dreamin'. It may be too late to sign up, but you could at least go and stand outside.
It is not. We take walk-ups.
Yeah, there you go. Take walk-ups. I had see, if I wouldn't have said that, we wouldn't have known, or at least I wouldn't have. Forcelandia sounds awesome. It's in Portland, and then obviously Dreamforce. So, with that being said, just some ground rules for MVP Office Hours as we talk about it. It's an open discussion, so it's basically answers live. And we hold this the first and third Friday of each month at this time, each of those Fridays. And we kind of have a saying that no question or topic is too big or small. So no dumb questions. This is judgment-free zone, if you will. And we're going to post this recording out to the community as well as Twitter. And because it's open, we just ask that you mute your lines unless you're asking or answering a question. That way we can hear the questions and answers very clearly. Just to ask questions, you can raise your hand in the meeting, and we'll get to you as soon as we're open. Or if there's a dead spot and we're asking for questions, just feel free to speak up, and we'll go from there. And all we ask is that you announce yourself if you're responding to a question, so we actually know who it is and not just some, voice in the distance, if you will. So with that being said, let me introduce our special guest for today. And this is actually a cool thing for me. It's a colleague of mine and a Salesforce MVP, Jeff Gross. And Jeff is a Salesforce long-timer, as you can see there on the screen. Been an MVP for a long time, Salesforce user for a long time, and if you follow Jeff on Twitter, you would know that if you want to know the locations of churros throughout Disneyland, he's your guy. He could probably tell you each location of the best churros too, by the way. And on top of that, he knows Service Cloud like the back of his hand. So he's a big thought leader within Service Cloud, and also has a podcast called Case Closed, which is pretty awesome. So definitely follow him on Twitter. But Jeff is here to answer all your Service Cloud questions. So we're excited to have you on, Jeff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jared. I appreciate you guys letting me come on and talk today. Yeah, so I definitely could tell you where the best churros are, and unfortunately, if you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to have a lot harder time finding good churros down there because there's very few stands, and they're not as good as Disneyland. So that's just a fact of the matter. But yeah, Service Cloud has really been my life for quite a while here, and it's been something that I'm more passionate about than, frankly, any other clouds on Salesforce, even though I really like Salesforce and everything that you can do with it. So Service Cloud has been something that I've been part of a lot of different projects around it, both as an admin and then also coming over to doing consulting 5 years ago. So you also give a big shout out to Cheryl Feldman, who's my co-host with the podcast, which, by the way, if you've been listening, you'll notice that there has been a lull in that. That is going to change. So I just want to let you know that didn't fall off the face of the earth. It's just been a little quiet for a while, but I do encourage you to go check it out and bring your topics there too. We would love to talk about more of those topics. So love to hear what everybody's looking forward to hearing about today. One of the things that I'm hoping we get a chance to talk about is Field Service Lightning. So let's see what questions everybody has out there, but I'm kind of hoping FSL might be one of those.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so with that being said, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Who wants to be the first person to speak up and ask a question today?
Hey, this is Chandler. I have one thing I wanted to remark on. I got the email a few days ago from Salesforce saying they're going to redesign the Lightning sidebar. That was kind of I was like, oh, we're going to move it. Did you guys get that where he said they're going to move it from the vertical sidebar to the top?
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of like a concession of like, yeah, maybe that mobile, mind-centric version of the Salesforce interface maybe hasn't translated to desktop and we're shifting it up. So I just kind of curious on people's thoughts on that and the sort of the meta aspect of how the Lightning rollout has gone in general.
Yeah, I mean, so many customers have been asking, what about Lightning Experience? Is it something that I should turn on? What do I want to do with it? What are the benefits of it? And frankly, I think the adoption has been a bit slow. We're going on a year from when it was introduced, which is, giving it some maturity, and definitely they've brought out a lot of additional features in it. But changing that from looking like a mobile app running on the desktop in the browser to probably looking a little bit more like a desktop app again, I actually think that's kind of a good thing. Now, what I think is really challenging is when you start looking through the release notes and every one of the features, it's like, okay, this only works in Classic, or this works in Lightning only, or this works in both of them. That's what's becoming kind of confusing to customers. And so I think getting the unification of that so that most of the new features will run in both gives people the option. Because right now it's like, all of those things you got to evaluate. Okay, wait, now if my sales users are using Lightning Experience but my service ones are using Classic, how are these features going to be enabled?
Yeah, that's pretty clear that I feel like this is like almost like the Windows 8 situation, where you've got you've got the desktop app, you got the desktop Classic like Salesforce Classic, and you've got Lightning Experience, which is like those Metro apps, and then maybe at this, at this juncture, they're kind of figuring out, okay, well, we really need to make sure that we get a unified experience, because this is causing a sort of a, I have a new customer that I showed Classic to, and they're like, oh, this is cool, and then I showed Lightning Experience, and they, after that, and they said, no, yeah, let's definitely stick with Salesforce Classic. And this is like a brand new customer who hadn't even seen Salesforce before. I gave them the option, and I thought because this was going to be a salesperson who was handling, kind of simple lead tracking and stuff in Salesforce and opportunities, I thought maybe the simpler implementation with Lightning would make sense, and they just thought Classic was better. So it definitely, I love to, it's kind of sad if I'm going to put someone on Classic if Lightning is going to be the way forward. I want to be able to onboard them onto the future thinking platform, and I want them to miss features. So it's definitely an issue of where is everything going, and how do we make sure the customers have access to those new features.
Well, and who on the call remembers Salesforce Touch? That was a short-lived iOS app that basically it allowed you to get out of the browser on your phone or on tablet, and it touch enabled it so you could actually move around and click into fields and things like that rather than using it through the browser. But they ended up switching that out, and that became obsolete as well. So the change, I think for me, whenever I'm approaching it with customers, oftentimes I'm really careful not to show them two different things. It's really, I'll give an example of this, case feed. Case feed for me really took a while to catch on and to become something that I would really recommend to people, partly just because I came from old school where there was no such thing as a case feed. You always looked at a detail view. You knew where to look for all these fields. It was really hard to change to this, okay, I've got all these different filters, and now I've got one continuous list of basically what's happening in there. But now as you design the console, for example, and you can have your sidebars that kind of take place of the highlights panel. So it has definitely gone through a lot of evolutions, because we had the highlights panel, then we started being able to drag things into the sidebars, then you started being able to do accordion and tabs and all those kinds of things. Now, it's it's really kind of a delicate balancing act because you've got so many different options out there, and I think that's actually one of the reasons people are cautious about even using Service Console because it can be daunting because it's so wide open. So many things you can do with it.
Yeah, that's so true. I've been trying to implement Service Cloud for our team, and it's been there's so many options with custom components and all these kind of cool things you can do. Having the sub tabs structure set up so you can switch between customers on the primary tabs rather than the actual cases. So it's all kind of gathered. I mean, it's just trying to figure out a workflow that works. That's powerful for the team, but also easy enough to not intimidate the users is really it's been a struggle. And so I guess you're a Service Cloud expert. I guess maybe I should ask you what are some suggestions you have on implementing and doing Service Cloud? I guess maybe you can show us an example of how you set it up.
Well, I'd love to show you an example, but I wasn't able to get onto the web meeting portion of it. But I'll definitely talk you through some of the things that I think about first. And oftentimes, my first step is I'll just go to the spot, as it were, to go and see exactly what the service reps are doing today, to understand what the tools that they have are, and when they're doing a lot of the swivel chair, switching from one application to another. What is it you need to see? What happens when the call initially comes in? Some of them have CTI, so it does screen pop. Other ones don't. Well, what do you need to do next? Once you establish who it is you're talking to, where are you going to go next? And I think about how all that information can be displayed on there. And I like to use deep linking as much as possible. That I think integrations could be as deep as saying, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and bring all of my orders into Salesforce. Not only just the headers, but the line item detail and everything. At the same time, some customers, that's just way too much data being moved around, or you may do a live integration where you've got a call out that actually just displays it in real time. You know what? At the same time, you could go simple. You could just simply have a URL that's constructed that takes you out to that web application, and you don't have to necessarily have that. They're not running it in a separate browser. You could have it come up in a sub-tab. So I look at all of those different pieces, and then where are the pieces of information that you need to see all the time? So now with that sidebar, kind of replacing some of the highlights panel features, it's around what kinds of things would I want to see all the time. So maybe it's the account and some of the contact information, a couple of list views over on one of the sidebars. I always want to have the knowledge sidebar up as well, because I think that's one of the somewhat underutilized pieces in Service Cloud, and it's kind of funny because it's one of the things you're in essence paying for by having Service Cloud, but knowledge is so huge, and continually contributing to it is something that's hard to get folks to buy into, which is odd because it's so helpful to them.
Yeah, I actually we got Service Cloud, but we didn't buy the knowledge license. So we kind of seems like one of those things where I saw a demo with knowledge and it's like a missing link because they have solutions in there, but I feel like solutions is kind of like the toddler's version of knowledge. It just doesn't. It seems like the old legacy thing that doesn't really fit into the Service Cloud console experience. So you consider it pretty much essential?
Yeah, I wouldn't count on solutions sticking around for very long. And I think the future is definitely going to be knowledge, and being able to make that bigger by being able to have translations in there, things like that. It's way broader, and in fact, knowledge now is even integrated to the work orders object. So whether you go field service lightning or not, the work orders object is actually open for all people to use. And some are saying actually that they think the work order object may even become more important than the case object itself that it's tied to. So you can now tie knowledge articles into the work order. So, for example, if you've got particular part or something you're going out to service or anything out there that somebody else needs to complete a task, you can have a knowledge article automatically associated with it. So you're tying all that together rather than making people go out and search for it.
Good point. Work orders are not something that I've worked with very much in our org, so that's definitely something we should look into for getting build time in. I think that makes sense.
pretty new, but the way it's going to extend out is going to be tremendous. And you can use it in not just the service industries. I think there's ways you could even use work orders to, in some ways, replace the activities object that we typically put in, our events and calendar. We got activities and events. We can actually utilize a work order to track some of those other pieces. And it's all going to come down in how you report on it. But the work orders is definitely going to keep on getting continual love from Salesforce. They're going to keep on growing it.
Good point. Thank you for your information. It's very helpful.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good stuff. Who's next? Who else has a question?
Eu queria colocar a situação agora como sou eu que estou precisando.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I don't think that was a question. I think
we have a person that I'm getting ready to chat that has some background noise, so I'm muting and unmuting to make sure the noise is going away. So that was nothing.
Brilliant. Okay.
Who wants to ask a question?
Who's heard of snap-ins? Anybody? Anybody heard of snap-ins?
It's new to me. Don't know what that is.
Yeah, so this is something Salesforce announced maybe a month and a half ago. So it's pre-built ways that you can integrate between chat and two-way video out into any of your websites and mobile apps. So now you've got actually two-way video, so it's not just like the Mayday button on the Amazon Kindle, but now what you can do, or the Fire tablet, what you can do is you can actually integrate chat into any area of your website, and it lives right there. You don't have to have an extra pop-up window that comes up. It can live on any of those pages and allows you to interact with the agents back in the service center. And it can be integrated to mobile apps. It's basically an SDK so that you can configure it the way you want, but it's much easier to plug in than in the past where you had to do a lot more coding.
That's really cool. I hadn't heard about that at all. Is that something what licenses does that require?
That is a great question that I don't have off the tip of my tongue right now. We can definitely look into it, though. It's one of those things that it might be a feature license as far as how it's implemented, but it's going to tie back to SOS is the video service that probably has a feature license associated with it. So any of your agents who need to use that would be using an SOS license, and then Live Agent Chat for those who are going to be manning the chat lines.
Okay. An interesting question I've sort of been dealing with as an implementer of Salesforce was, I just implemented. I have a small startup that has reached out to me to implement Salesforce for them. I implemented PE for them, but of course the question was we use Service Cloud. But I eventually just recommended doing Desk because I feel like Desks for a startup, I feel like Desk feature set is just a massive value compared to what Service Cloud offers, because even though Service Cloud has a lot of the features of Desk, it does so at a very high, the scale is much higher. Like the license cost to have a lot of the basic features in Desk, such as the community portal, and then live chat and a lot in social features and stuff like that, seems like it's just you're paying a lot for those licenses to have them in Service Cloud, and then in Desk the call kind of comes with it and it's cheaper. Obviously the native Salesforce solutions can be better integrated, but even that is sort of being mitigated by Desk Connect and these features to connect Desk to Salesforce. So I was kind of just curious from your point of view what you think of that scale and sort of that model that Salesforce has for their pricing between the two platforms.
Well, I think it's great that they have an option out there because not every company can go and invest as much money as it takes to get into Service Cloud. And compared to before they even bought Assistly, which is what became Desk, there was an integration to Service Cloud so it could actually synchronize your cases and your contacts and your accounts and things. But That's gotten much better now. So it is a stepping stone, so that for a very low investment and almost turnkey, I won't say quite turnkey because there's definitely, configuration. There's things that you need to spend time working on, but it's in the order of, 2 weeks to get it going as opposed to 2 months or something like that. So there's a lot less options that you need to configure, but it makes a great stepping stone for getting into Service Cloud right after it. So it can work very well for that. And I think from a portal perspective, or viewing your knowledge base, making that available to folks, that's actually a huge benefit to be able to use Desk right out of the box. And it's not like having to develop a community on Salesforce, which communities are great, don't get me wrong in any way, because deployed a lot of those out there. But for the ease of being able to put it out there, Desk is a great option.
Yeah, I definitely think so. We my main company I work with, Digital Glue, they where I work full time, we went from Desk.com to Service Cloud simply because we were selling a lot of products and products we want to manage as assets, and just Desk's connection with that wasn't working. And I think Service Cloud's been good for us, but it's also it's kind of that growing pain of dealing with going from Service Cloud to Desk. I feel like they still from Desk to Service Cloud. I feel like they still haven't really gotten they still don't have like a full-blown plan of, like, even with talking to my account exec of, okay, so we're a Desk.com customer and we want to go to Service Cloud. How much do we have to pay to make it so it's an effortless process? It seems like even going from Zendesk to Desk is what we did a year and a half ago. It was a very simple process, but even going from Desk into Service Cloud, basically what we did was we already had Desk Connect going. We kind of just moved over to Salesforce and started doing the cases in Salesforce instead, which has worked okay. But now we've got, what do we do with these old Desk websites? How do we do we just put the new web to case form in there? Oh, but the web to case form for Salesforce doesn't have attachments. There's little weird things that just, they still doesn't seem like they've figured out seamlessly how to, from the perspective of Salesforce and maybe their account execs and whatnot, they haven't really presented easy options for converting over. But also as an admin, even if I could convert over, it seems like I'd have to probably develop some kind of API tool or script that does it. That would take a lot of time to do. So, just what do you think of that? Yeah.
Well, so I've known a few people who work in the Desk.com side of Salesforce, but honestly it's been a while since I've talked to any of them to see where the product is going. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is to go and talk to them directly about where is the product direction of this, and how much more integration are they going to do. I think the level that they've gotten to is significantly what it was in the past, but I think we all want to hear that there's some commitment to continuing that development and not just letting it be something that's simply an option for the folks who are not quite ready for a full-blown CRM yet. So it makes a great alternative to Zendesk, which is frankly one of the reasons I think Salesforce did it, is that they really needed something to be able to get out to the small to medium business market and be able to go quickly and compete directly against Zendesk. So I think, frankly, that was a lot of the reason why Desk became part of Salesforce. But I think we all need to push them in order to get some, as much as you can, get some commitment around, where is this thing going, and these are the pains that I'm having. I'm not sure if they necessarily are talking to all of the folks out in the field enough to really get that like they should. And I'm not knocking product management. Trust me, I work with all of them, and they're great people. But we all have our different priorities, and sometimes we just got to voice our concerns a little bit louder.
It's a great point. If you want something changed, you just got to be the one that reaches out, and don't just assume everyone else is doing the same thing, because sometimes you're the first guy. It's funny to have that kind of a power and ability, even as a customer of a big company like Salesforce. They've done a pretty good job of being able to open that dialogue with their customers. So it's a good point.
Well, the other thing I'd really recommend doing is getting involved in the user experience team as well. So Salesforce has a user experience group who has us out trying out these features and seeing what did you expect to happen when you click there, or what if we were to change this navigation to be at the top instead of the side. they get your reactions, and man, that is, to me, that's so much fun, because not only is it, you get to see the future of, potentially what could be in Salesforce. Of course, you're under NDA, so you can't go talking about it all over, but it's one of those things where you get a chance to give your feedback and say, you know what, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, or this is what I really need it to do. And they're always looking for people, so if you're not involved in it already, absolutely go check out the user experience.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Actually, that's funny you mentioned that. There's one, the pop-ups on Service Console, or in the console app, where you hover over a case and it just shows you a pop-up with all of the fields with the columns that are already in the list view that my users are all complaining about, but I can't disable. I kind of wonder if that went through the user experience team. I mean, have you had experience with that? That was like everyone's complaining about it online.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to try a feature out like that, but hey, the other side of that is always the idea exchange, man. You go out there and get your friends to all vote up the same things, and they have to give a response of some kind to you when it gets to that threshold.
Good point. Yeah, I'm hoping that particular feature gets a little bit of at least it gets to the ability to be disabled in next release. But yeah, so user experience team is a really good tip. I'm going to reach out and see what I can do for that.
Well, it's funny because I remember a Dreamforce many a year ago where a guy named George who ran product at Salesforce at the time got a standing ovation in Dreamforce for announcing that suddenly our calendar events were going to create pop-up notifications in the browser. So it was going to be a pop-up window, and this was during the time when everybody had pop-up blockers. And so it was just so funny to me that people were like, well, no, we really want to have the pop-ups from Salesforce. We want to have them from everywhere else, but we want this thing to come up for Salesforce. So it was funny when he got a standing ovation, which totally surprised him.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like the reminders pop up, or
exactly,
yep. With the bling.
Yep. When you log in, boom, there it pops up for you.
Yeah, I think we have most of our users have about 50 unaddressed ones that pop up every time they log in. So maybe that's more of a configuration side thing I need to address.
Well, it's one of those things too, though, that everybody has a different way of working. It's like, you might write things down on a list of what you got to get done today. I put it into an electronic app, and everybody has their own different way of working. Now, obviously, within a contact center, we have to, enforce some standards around. We're going to meet our SLAs, and we're going to make sure that we get the right service out there. Now, how you get it done may be different from person to person, and that's where I've seen people who've had 500 plus tasks that were never closed, and it's like you got to go and do a little bit of coaching and say, hey, you know what, these tasks actually exist out here because we need you to close them out. And it's actually as a reminder, but people grow deaf to it because you see the email come into your inbox. Maybe you even got an agent that actually deletes it or moves it somewhere else so you don't have to see it. But there's all kinds of things that people are probably doing to work around the current system you have. And that's part of where going to the spot and getting out there and seeing what people are really doing is just eye-opening to find the hacks, the things that people are doing that you never knew they were, just to get around what you may have deployed to them, or what they're using today in the current system.
Yeah, good point for sure. It's funny today at the office. Most of us work from home, and our main guy to support is here, so I'm actually going to talk to him about a lot of this stuff and see how it's going. But thank you so much for your input on this. Maybe there's other people who want to talk and ask questions. They can.
Yeah, thanks for asking. What else we got, Jared?
Yeah, good stuff. Let's see. We don't have any hands raised and nothing in the chat. So who else has a question? Any Service Cloud questions? I know one of the things we posted about was if anybody has any questions around omnichannel or knowledge, etc.
Somebody be brave. Ask about omnichannel.
Jared, this is Squire.
Go ahead, Squire.
I don't know anything about omnichannel. Unfortunately, my team does not use service. But I do have a question about ideas that you might have some insight on.
You mean ideas the product from Salesforce, or ideas as in where you put ideas on the community?
The product, yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
Okay, so and it might be for everybody for all I know. So the challenge I'm having right now is I have a highly motivated business leader. When I say by motivated, tends to read everything he can read and then brings those ideas back and just assumes that things would be turned on. Learned about ideas, wants to light them up for kind of an internal, really like a brainstorming and ideas section. The challenge I'm having is that the limitations that ideas have as far as sharing rules. We have very specific business units within our org that they can't see each other's information due to financial compliance issues. And since I can't sharing rules, I'm concerned about trying to implement and then potentially the risks of overlaps there. I think that they can complete what they want to do, which is kind of it's almost a suggestion box with voting and commentary and things. I think they can do that with a chatter group, but I'd like to hear anybody's feedback on one or the other or both.
Well, the first thing I'd say about ideas as a product is that it hasn't gotten much attention for quite a while, and frankly, I think it's just kind of getting put out to pasture. Nothing official, but I kind of get this feeling that it's not going to be around for a long term. However,
yep.
We're all, we all have it. Well, I shouldn't say we all have it. A lot of companies have it in place. I think the big thing is getting around how do you actually interact with people and what do you do with anything they do suggest. So you'll have people who are highly motivated to go out and create a bunch of ideas, but if somebody doesn't listen to them, if nobody takes action on them, they, our other behavior from the rest of the group becomes, all right, I'm tired of putting things out there and nobody's responding to it. Now, it's great that you got a leader who is, motivated to get out there and say, I really want to get the feedback. Now what we got to do is figure out a plan for how are we going to implement it, how are we going to take all those ideas and make them something that we do, in everyday life. So I think if I was to give you guidance around what I would do, like I say, I don't think the product's going to be around for a long time. However, getting it out there and getting some utility out of it while it's still alive would be great. And I don't know when they sunset stuff, I'm not sure exactly how they would, basically, it's going to continue to run. It's just going to kind of wither away out there. So it may be something you want to look at creating your own version of it or your own way of doing it. The data model behind it isn't too complicated. Now, it does require some of the, the voting up, voting down. You'd have to do a little bit of apex around how that would work and, the half-lives and things like that. But you may get more mileage out of doing it yourself. Or I do kind of like the chatter group idea that you have. The question is, how do you now organize it? Because that's one of our biggest challenges with chatter is that it's great for the immediate collaboration and you do have search. But now how do I turn all that into real data? How could I report on it? You're going to have a really tough time.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe where we're struggling the most is there isn't a lot of requirements other than, basically if you paraphrase all the things you just described as possible challenges, that's kind of the message is we want to have ideas so that they flourish into something. We want to track votes and we want to be able to see these things. But there's not a lot of detailed thought going into it. It's just more about, well, I saw ideas, that'll work. So the original launch, I've been pushing it for quite a while just with chatter just to try to see what the buy-in was. The reporting as far as like number of fresh posts kind of equals ideas and the number of likes is kind of voting and we can even track the number of feed comments to even show interest. But you're right. Once you start reporting the actual ideas themselves or that they kind of drift into the ether because of the feed itself, that has been a challenge. So, I appreciate hearing kind of the same stuff that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, and when you go back to what became Ideas, it was this company that Salesforce acquired back in, I think it was 2007 maybe. It was a company called Crispy News. And I think, like a lot of other acquisitions, it had its own kind of life cycle that was really hot back then. Think back to the days of It was launched at Dell, and they were able to come up with ideas for what do you guys want in the new XPS laptop. And instead of taking 9 months to figure out what do people really want out there, you put out a site and you start taking in those ideas, and within 3 weeks, you got more information than you ever would have gathered in 9 months through traditional methods. So it definitely has its own unique brand of being able to gather the feedback. It's just a question of, there's really not many other ways to gather that through existing technology that's there. So like I say, I mean, I don't want to discourage you from using ideas. It's just don't hang your hat on that too much, because it probably won't be out there too long.
Yeah, I agree. And just a really quick question: is the sharing or the visibility of those communities risk enough, do you think, because of what I referenced earlier about our compliance issues? If they really want an ideas portal, it makes a lot of sense to just do a custom one so it doesn't sunset and it works as we need it to. Does that seem like a true thing?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, and it's also one of those things that I'm trying to be careful, because I like to do things through configuration as much as possible. So I'm not always a huge proponent of going out and doing custom code. In this case, where you do have some security needs, though, too, that would give you the full flexibility of doing it exactly the way you want.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for your input.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. Good stuff, Jeff. All right. We have about 20 minutes left. Who else has a question?
If nobody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to do cheap plugs for Midwest Dreamin' just to get a few more people to come next week.
I can bring up something unless you guys want to do your plug now, and I'll talk after.
No, sure. Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So I guess macros. Like, do you have any ideas on macros that have really helped your teams out?
So this is one of those areas that I think needs its own, I don't know, for lack of a better term, it needs its own Pinterest or something around it. And I've asked Salesforce before to help come up with scenarios or what are some great use cases for macros. So how many of you guys remember a PDF document that Salesforce published back in, I think, 2006 that was all about creating formulas? And there were two different versions of it, and it had all these scenarios of, hey, if you want to be able to create what day of the year is it you use this formula, or if you want to do an image field, this is what it was, things like that. We reuse those forever, and they need something like that for macros, because it's just challenging enough, or it's just nebulous enough that people don't know exactly what would I use this for. So the typical one that we always think of is, hey, I want to be able to close out this particular type of case, and I always do it the same way. I'm going to change the status to this. I'm going to choose this email template. I want to attach this knowledge article to it. I want to make sure that the email that goes out has a copy of the knowledge article as a PDF. I want it to change these other 3 fields and close it out. All those different things. It could be all these multiple steps, and you can create it as quickly as, literally a couple of keystrokes. And so that's the typical use case, but there are tons and tons of other ideas out there. I just haven't seen a lot of people utilizing them, and maybe, Jared, you've probably seen some other use cases out there as well, but that's where I think we all need some creative collaboration around. Let's think about all the different things you could do with macros. And if we were able to put that together, maybe we just put a global GDoc out there that we all contribute to, I think that could become something really valuable to people, because macros are super, super powerful, but it's a little nebulous.
Yeah, I'd agree. I know I've seen some of our consultants internally post about using macros, but I feel like it still has been a little few and far between, because the use case seems to have to be there to use them. But I have seen a few, kind of post about their experience and that it has been nice, but it's still kind of, without having that one-stop shop, it's kind of hard to, exactly wrap your head around, how would I use this? What are the, key use cases type deal.
Well, it's just complicated enough that the setup of it, I'm not sure that you could literally move one macro from your org to mine. I don't know that we could actually pull it out and, make it on the AppExchange as a component or something like that. But if we had the framework of it to say, here are the steps that you go through to create this kind of a macro, I think those ideas would really shape how we could use them. So frankly, I haven't seen a lot of people who've gone out and created a whole library of them. I've seen folks who've done, 6, 7, 8 of them. But huge productivity booster if you come up with the reasons and, the ways to do it. And you think about the number of clicks that you can save for agents. Some people really value that stuff. Now, some people are, they don't like the way we try and change them. It's not that people dislike change, but they dislike the way that we try and change them or try and change their behavior. So being able to put some macros out there that are useful and showing them the value of it, that could probably drive some better adoption.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of tied to that, I was also sort of curious, like with the action bar. Well, first of all, it seems like with macros, the action bar, whatever item, actions you use from the macro have to actually be on the layout. But what I'm sort of running into is that I don't want to have too many items on the action bar. And how do I get it so, I know you can do page layouts. I guess with record types is probably the only solution I've sort of can think of. But what maybe with just, do you have any tips on trying to keep that action bar efficient and maybe like kind of explain what generally is a good, like, what's a good template to work from if you just want a really simple action bar? Or I guess publisher action is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
On a case.
Well,
yeah.
It's all on a case-by-case basis, so you hate that consultant answer that says it depends, but that's
right.
where, what are the most common things that you're going to be doing? And I think of the easy ones around, status changes, things that normally would take numerous clicks. Hey, let's just make that as an action button on there, and then it automatically happens. It's easy to do. But the problem is everybody might have a different desktop resolution, and so depending on either how big your font is because your browser doing zooming in or zooming out, how many are going to display. And it is kind of annoying when you've got actions that extend way beyond and you have to, hit the drop down to be able to do additional ones. And you almost want to be able to personalize that to say, these are the 3 or 4 that I use most often. I would like to be able to customize that to be able to do my own. But, it's one of those things where Salesforce has sometimes given us that opportunity to make, our page layouts and certain things more customized to us, but that also makes the admin's job a little harder because now you're probably going to go out there and clobber what somebody else did, which is, actually kind of fun as an admin too when you've got that power to say, you know what, no, I'm going to force this change onto you as far as the page layout. So it's really going to come down to what are the most useful ones and keeping it minimal. It's like you want to be able to utilize as much feature as is there, but you want to keep it as simple as possible too. So it is a balance.
That's a good point. It really does depend on the case.
Well, and think about when you go into chatter groups, there's certain ones where I'll never put an announcement or I'll never do a question, and all I want to do is I always want to post URLs or I always want to post just a post. And so you kind of want to almost be able to do it on a agent or a person by person and an object by object. That'd be amazing if they could get to that kind of configurability that says Jared likes it this way, Jeff likes it this way, and that's cool.
Yeah, I guess profiles and record types are probably the best way to matrix that for a case, right?
Yeah, it's going to get a little wonky or hard to manage from longer term, depending on how many record types you've got and page layouts and things. But then let's say both of us have the same profile, then we're going to be stuck using the same one, unless you could add that as some sort of permission set thing. I don't know if you could ever do that where you'd have an overlay of almost like button arrangement or something like that.
When you're dealing with standard pages, no.
Say that again, please.
When you're dealing with standard pages, when trying to align page layouts with profiles and record types, I don't think you can do that in permission sets. You just probably have to play around with some Visual Force, and even then, I don't know if there's an override feature.
Yeah. Idea.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, because you have no idea how many times I've wanted to do that in my org.
Yeah.
I think what's the last thing I'll bring up. So how do you guys manage your tasks and stuff? Do you actually use the tasks record in Salesforce as a way of managing what you need to do, or do you have an external GTD system for doing it?
You talking personally or for agent?
I guess for I guess I would say personally, and if you do use it for your team and implement it, do you do so? I mean, because you did mention before, everyone has their own way of doing it. But one thing I've been trying to figure out is how to leverage a powerful GTD manager that works for myself, and manage that between maybe we use TaskView, which is like a Salesforce-based project manager. I'm trying to implement it on a wider scale for the team. I actually got it so I embedded basically TaskView. It's almost like a Trello board in your Salesforce, or Trello in Salesforce. But we're trying to. I got to basically create, every time you make a case, it creates a board with tasks. So every case has a Trello board. Basically, it's auto created and people can manage it and assign tasks in it. So I've been trying to use that as sort of an alternative for doing the Salesforce tasks, and it's you can manage it within a web app with an inbox and stuff that's based in Salesforce and it's native. But I guess I'm just trying to how do really successful Service Cloud implementations, how do they leverage tasks, maybe the native tasks in Salesforce, or how do they assign tasks and stuff on a team basis that's proved to work? Because I have had a difficult time really seeing people able to do that in a web app. It seems like most people just like to do it in their own personal management style. So I guess it's kind of a philosophical question, really, and maybe see if there is a working solution that you've seen.
Well, the first thing I would say is that there's going to be certain things that you have to be able to measure. It's, I need to be able to measure when was something created, who has it, when is it due. So that's where I would say doing the tasks within Salesforce are actually really good for being able to create something that requires action and follow-up. So all the tasks within Salesforce, it either is open or it's closed, and it has a way to be able to nag you. You can use workflow to make sure that we nag people to get it done. Now, the side effect of that is when you get nagged about something, you tend to grow numb to it. So you don't even pay attention anymore, just like the person with 500 tasks who never completed them, even though they had the pop-up come up and they ignored it every time. So I think from being able to measure what your team is doing, absolutely need to be able to utilize something within Salesforce. So whether that is using tasks, which is great for the smaller pieces of work that needs to happen. I've also seen a lot of times where we'll use sub-cases or just a related case. It doesn't have to be a child case, because sometimes it has the need to be able to spawn additional ones that you then update and close the parent one from it. But sometimes there's just, the fact is you need other teams to do some work, and it needs to be able to be tracked as a case as well. So I think that's where oftentimes we'll see people spawn off additional cases and then just keep the synchronization through formula fields to see what's going on in the related case. And, sometimes it'll actually be transferred to another whole group, which is then a fine case for just going ahead and just transferring ownership of it. But oftentimes you need something that you can measure that, hey, I transferred this to you, and when is it going to get done, so that you not only can communicate to your customer when the expected SLA is, but you need to be able to track it. And if it's outside of Salesforce, that's where it gets a little hard to deal with, because now if you've got it in Asana or anything else that's outside of Salesforce, even though there are integrations, it's going to be much harder to report on. And so I would try and keep as native as possible, but between tasks and related cases, those are the things I would use most often.
Yeah, what I'm getting from what you're saying, which is just great, is just like if there's a task that we really want to be able to report on, and see what's open and hold people accountable for that. I mean, that's really what should go into Salesforce. I guess what.
Yeah.
Because I guess, for me, I love it if every single thing integrated and it all just like perfect sync with everyone's task manager, and just a sort of synergy or whatever with all of the different things, and would be awesome. But I guess when it comes to prioritizing, really what needs to be able to be done is be able to hold people accountable and be able to show management like, okay, well, this thing needs to get done, and these people are assigned it, and they haven't gotten done yet. Like, what do we need to do to make sure it gets done? I guess that's the true value.
Well, and when you've got people who are going to be living in Salesforce all the time, that's great that you create all of their work lists in Salesforce. And by being able to create a tab for them that shows them what I have, what's still due, all of those kinds of things, you got to be able to build out something for them to be able to manage it from. Don't expect them to be thinking about going to a dashboard and viewing it from there, because that's a great way to, if you can drive the behavior to run it off a dashboard every day and see what they need to do, that's great. Problem is so many other people have other systems. Salesforce is only one tool that you use throughout the day, and so all of the other things that you need to do happen in another system, and so that people will oftentimes just write it down on a legal pad or whatever. Personally, I use OmniFocus, which is something.
Yeah, me too.
I can always get better at it because I don't. It's kind of like Photoshop. I don't think anybody has ever perfected the whole thing, but it is flexible enough and it is capable enough to do integrations to almost everything I could want to do out there. But I have to be very disciplined in how I use it. Otherwise, it grows stale.
Yeah, that's. I've actually been doing all kinds of research on trying to get OmniFocus working for me with my work and personal tasks. And one thing I was sort of idealistically hoping for was, can I get these synced? Which is, I'm sure there's a way to kind of get it synced, but if it's kind of synced, it kind of falls apart because it's like, well, I didn't complete it in the one, but I completed it in the other. Well, I guess you can try to do some kind of sort of two-way sync, but what if it gets deleted? It's like. Yeah. Leaves a lot of open ends open, but it's good to know there's other people using Salesforce that are also using OmniFocus. That's reassuring.
The easiest way that you can use OmniFocus with Salesforce would be using the browser plugin. So being able to have the browser plugin that actually allows you to create a task from whatever's on your screen, so that actually takes the content, it takes the link of it, and brings it over there. So now you just have to figure out how you're going to organize it, which is there's all kinds of theories about how best to organize your stuff. I'll just give a shout out to a group called Asian Efficiency who.
I know. I bought the productivity blueprint from them. Yeah, I'm all about Asian Efficiency.
All right, so yeah, you know about it, and they've got a lot of great information out there, but it is so personal that one of us is going to use it differently, but really powerful.
Yeah, you guys should definitely, on the slide for the presentation for this MVP office hours, I would definitely put up Asian Efficiency and the productivity blueprint because, that's a really great system. I've been involved in their stuff for a while, and they're really great guys, and they really focus on great productivity methods.
And they do great email marketing too. I mean, it's almost too much at times, but they're putting out content that's valuable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been awesome. We have like 2 minutes left, so I want to take that time to just wrap up here. We had a question come through the chat just around mass updating tasks, and what I provided is one of the apps on the App Exchange. It's, I believe, a free app. Yeah, it's a free app that allows you to do that. So we put that there on the slide, and then we'll put that other information in there as well. But Jeff, we really appreciate your expertise and you making the time to join us and provide that today. We'll definitely have to have you on again.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, man, anytime. Now, I do want to introduce our guest that will be in our next call coming on August 5th. So we have a little bit of time off. July is what seems to be like the never-ending month already. But on August 5th, I don't know how Jason's going to do it, but maybe he'll follow it up with a smile, even though he won't be on camera. I'm not sure, but Jason is going to follow up Jeff here. And Jason's a great guy, a great community advocate, been an MVP for quite a while now, and has a lot of expertise about a lot of things. So be looking for tweets as well as posts within the community about sign up for that. And we'll look forward to talking with Jason on August 5th. So appreciate everybody's time. Dale, thanks for running the slides and helping out with the chat. With that said, everyone have a great weekend, and we will talk to you on the next office hours.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to get the Asian efficiency links up here. Jared, you still there?